Now let's go to the failed city of Minneapolis in the once great state of Minnesota before it became known for crime, fraud and Governor Tampon Tim Walz. But Walz is not the only inept clown in the state. We're about to hear from the stupidly woke Minneapolis Police Chief, Brian O'Hara, who seems to think imposing immigration law, is akin to persecuting baby Jesus.
I cannot help but think of what is happening in our city today and how that echoes with how outsiders have been treated for thousands of years, how Mary and Joseph themselves were considered outsiders and forced to stay in a barn. That's what we're getting ready to commemorate as Christians around the world, while all of this fear is happening right here in our town.
Joining me now is the RNC Youth Advisory Council co-chair, CJ Pearson. CJ, what's your response to that?
You know, I'm speechless, and I'm never speechless, so it doesn't, I can't even honestly believe the words that came out of his mouth. You know, those on the left love to quote the Bible when it's convenient, but they never quote the Bible when it comes to mutilating the genitals of children. They never quote the Bible when it comes to there being only two genders. They never quote the Bible when it comes to actually believing in the basic premises of the text. But when it comes to allowing unfettered illegal immigration to our country, they all of a sudden become theologians. It's quite interesting to me. But here's the deal when it comes to this. If these police officers are more focused on actually going after real criminals and violent crime, and instead not defending violent criminal illegal aliens, maybe the state of Minnesota would be a lot safer, and people would be moving into the state and not running for the hills.
Now, CJ, let's talk about the media, and the talk in DC today is all about that Vanity Fair piece. But before we dive into that one, President Donald Trump has officially sued the BBC for $5 billion. He's described the British broadcaster's editing of his speech as deceptive and inflammatory. Let's have a look at just how deceptive the BBC was.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you, and we fight. We fight like hell. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
Yeah, just a subtle difference there. CJ, the president has had fantastic success suing media companies for their deliberate lies. He's had big wins against mainstream media, including ABC and CBS, and also social media giants like the Meta, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, now X. Do you expect him to have another big win here? $5 billion is an extraordinary sum to be seeking.
Well, Rita, based on that track record, I certainly wouldn't bet against him. You know, this is a guy who has quickly become the F around and find out president. But for some reason, all these people seem so eager to find out. It seems as if BBC is something going to be next on that list.
Now let's talk about that story dominating DC today and beyond DC, it's got to be said. It's a Vanity Fair profile on White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles. She has slammed Vanity Fair, accused the reporter Chris Whipple of writing a disingenuously framed hit piece. She also said significant context was disregarded and much of what I and others said about the team and the president was left out of the story. Well, duh, lady. My question, CJ, is why in God's name would Susie Wiles or any person in the Trump administration trust a media outlet like Vanity Fair? I mean, this is an own goal.
You know, I think sometimes you have a little of optimism, and probably you see people better than what they actually are. And so I think looking at this story with Vanity Fair will be Vanity Fair, but I think it's still deceitful, and it's obvious what their goal was to be here. They're trying to divide the most effective chief of staff we've seen in probably American history from a president who's been incredibly effective. But fake narratives don't actually distort real results, and what we've seen in this president are exactly that, real results that have been executed by a very competent chief of staff. I think this was an unfortunate situation by a deceitful journalist who sought more to make himself the story in the headline than actually portray the truth of what an incredible leader Susie Wallace has been.
Well, again, I think you can't be that naive. You know how these media outlets operate, you know the individual journalist and their ideology. It's quite often very public. And you put yourself in that position, I think it's got to be on you. I mean, some of the comments that have been attributed to the president's chief of staff include the claim that President Trump, who is a teetotaler, he's never had alcohol. She described him as someone with an alcoholic's personality. And she said the Vice President, J.D. Vance, has been a conspiracy theorist for a decade. Now, I understand the context around that is missing, CJ, but it doesn't look great.
I think context is definitely missing there. And I think when she referred to the president as having a little bit of an alcoholic personality, she meant that he was obsessive about putting wins on the table for the American people. And I think he's done exactly that. When it comes to JD Vance being conspiracy theorists, I think I often say is the conspiracy theorists of today, the truth tellers of tomorrow. And I think JD Vance has probably been proven right about a lot of the things that were once conspiracy theories that are now just matters of fact today. And so, a lot of these quotes, I think we can't take them at face value just because of how deceitful we know left-wing publications like the Vanity Fair to be. But I think that this White House has certainly probably learned its lesson, not just from the quotes, but from the photographs. I think the photographs were one of the things that actually really caught my eye, just how deceitful they are. You see a picture of Karine
Yes.
Jean-Pierre in a previous article that they did about her, where she looks like a supermodel, Tyra Banks even maybe, right? But Caroline Leavitt, they absolutely edited to make it look just unlike her. And I've seen Caroline Leavitt in person many, many times. She does not look like any of the photos that I saw come out of this article. It's absolutely deceitful in every way whatsoever.
Well, I'm not shocked because when they put together a hit piece, it's comprehensive. It's not just the framing of the story, it's not just what they deliberately exclude, but it's the pictures, it's the images, it's the captions, it's the whole lot. That's why you do not trust these people, CJ. CJ Pearson, thank you for your time tonight.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you.